Hello, welcome back. This got disconnected due to some space problem, but you can understand here and you can read also Anglo-Saxon history and Old English language and literature. Prehistorical, like 1066 to up to 1066 AD, generally 450 they say. So, what is the overview of this period that we started discussing about? Like a story we started. So in the last video, you understood that how it was pre-Roman. If you go back, overview of periods of early English history, prehistory to 1066 AD. So pre-Roman also, before Roman, prehistorical you can say up to 55 BC. Occupation 55 BC to 410 AD, and then period 410 to 787, invasion 787 to 1066 AD, like all Anglo-Saxon Jutes. Conquest begins in 1066. So you can easily understand that Old English period is known for Anglo-Saxon and Jutes. But when people left, this Roman people left, Britain also started facing problem because they had lost their fighting abilities. They were tortured. So they were speaking Celtic at the time because of language rupture and other things. So it became vulnerable to invaders again. So again, other people started invading. In that only, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes attacked again these Celtic people. Remember, when Rome people left, Celtic speaking people were there. They existed in Britain. When Roman people went to Rome. I hope I am clear. So, after that, it became vulnerable, means it became weak again, and other attackers started attacking. So there comes Angles, Saxons, and Jutes tribes from modern day Germany, Denmark, Germany and Denmark. Now it is called Germany and Denmark. They were Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. They came through North Side Sea, bringing their Germanic language, which become Old English. So see, Celtic speaking people also were there. They were attacked by Anglo-Saxons and Jutes. But when these people brought their Germanic tongue, because they were Germanic tribes, old Denmark and Germany, modern day Germany and Denmark. So that became Old English. But there is something more that we have to discuss. There is something more that we have to understand. The Germanic invaders didn't come to an empty land. The Celts, Celtic speaking, who had been in Britain since Iron Age, had a rich tradition of myths and legends. You have to understand the cultural rupture and cultural understanding, cultural collaboration, you can say, so to say, or some of these like King Arthur. You remember tales of King Arthur would later became the part of English tradition, English literary tradition, King Arthur story. And the fusion of Celtic language, Celtic mythology, which is already existing, Celtic speaking people, and Anglo-Saxon and Jutes heroism gave us works like, can you tell me, works like heroism work like Beowulf, A Tale of Dragons and whatnot, monsters and seriously tough heroes. tough heroes started taking birth. But yes, very important thing. Meanwhile, far away Greece and Rome, philosophers like Plato, Aristotle were laying the intellectual foundation. One side invading, exchanging of culture or whatever, rupture, language, and other side Rome and Greece. Aristotle, Plato, Aristotle were laying intellectual foundations of Western thought. But that's why we are now calling it as a Western thought. Their works preserved by the church would later influence the Britain also. And medieval scholars and writers also. Because it was people were going and coming, some might be going for some trade, or some were going for some of them were going for education or exploration, or in like voyage, or like Vasco da Gama came to India. In a similar way, some enthusiastic people were there. Those who were leaving their country and trying to reach there. So the Roman Catholic Church also played an important, massive role in shaping Old English literature. How we can understand? Monks in monasteries and intellectual rock stars of their day, monks, they were intellectual rock stars, copied and preserved the texts, ensuring the stories of heroes and saints survived. So they wanted to keep it for the next generation. That you have to understand in a better way, that how this intellectual rupture, on the one side historical development, invasion, attacks, everything, heroism stories and other things, and on the one side this intellectual foundation for the Western thought, philosophers like Plato and Aristotle. I told you, Greece and Rome. So this we are trying to understand. Remember, don't forget. You are not supposed to forget these things. It's very, very important. So if you go to fast forward and let's go to 1066. The Romans, again led by William the Conqueror, arrived from France and decided to shake things up. He wanted to attack and he wanted to take away this Anglo-Saxon and Jutes. So they brought with them not just a feudal system, but also the French language. You can understand Celtic language, Germanic language, and the French language. You can imagine the rupture. Andhra English, Telangana English, Marathi like person like me, Hindi, Urdu, Muslim language, again foreign English mixture, Tamil, Kannada, everything is saturated in Hyderabad. In a similar way, you have France, French, Germanic, old Celtic language, and then French. And the French became the ruling people's tongue. It became the tongue of a ruling class. Imagine the poor Anglo-Saxon farmer trying to understand the French speaking. They were pressurized. They were trying to talk about their language barriers. The blend of Old English and Norman French. The blend of Old English and the Norman French. So the Germany, they brought the Germanic tongue, which became with the Celtic plus Old Germanic tongue became Old English. But now Old English plus Norman French gave the birth to Middle English. Now this you understood in terms of language, but now you think about the economical condition of that period. It was a great time of change. The rise of towns and trade created a new merchant class. New merchant class. Education spread. Universities like Oxford, which founded in 1096. So why we give importance to Oxford University? It was founded in 10096. You can imagine 11th century. Oxford University. And Cambridge, 1209, of course, after some time, became the hub of learning. Philosophically, medieval thinkers like Thomas Aquinas combined Greek philosophy with a Christian theology. Greek philosophy with a Christian theology, influencing the people the way they think and they understand life, humanity, and society. So, economically, you understood now. Philosophically, remember Thomas Aquinas combined things. Now you understand Britain, you are understanding this is happening. Ireland now. Go to Ireland because the book that I have shared with you talks about Britain and Ireland. Understand step by step, which is very important. You can't escape this. The next, if you go to prehistoric and pre-Roman, you can see here. The island we know as England was occupied by a race people called the Celts. One of the tribes was called by Britons and Britons, where we get the term Britain. This is extra information you can see. Celts were there, and the religion was known actually as animism, or Latin word for a spirit. Celts saw spirits everywhere. Druids were their priests, and their role was to go between gods and people. Prehistorical, animalism, prehistoric. You can understand. Then economically what was happening, we have discussed already, and philosophically what was happening we understood. Now let's hop over for a moment on Anglo-Saxons and Normans were transforming Ireland also. England, Ireland. Ireland was a center for learning and culture. Irish monks preserved ancient Greek and Roman texts during the so-called Dark Ages. You can check what is meant by Dark Ages. The rich Irish oral tradition filled with myths like the Tain, T-A-I-N, would later inspire writers like W.B. Yeats and James Joyce. So the myths like the Tain, you remember, and influenced the writers like W.B. Yeats and James Joyce. Very important. In Ireland, I'm talking about this island. Now back to England again. Back to England. By the 14th century, English was reclaiming its place as a literary language, thanks to no small part of Geoffrey Chaucer. Wasn't just a poet, but he was a diplomat, a courtier, and most importantly, keen observers of human nature. Very important. So 14th century, when the Chaucer was born, you have to understand these things. When the Chaucer was born, the Canterbury Tales also. Canterbury Tales we'll discuss now, but now Roman occupation. Hadrian's Wall. You can see here Hadrian's Wall. Important events during Roman occupation. When the Roman occupation was there, important events. Julius Caesar begins invasion occupation in 50 B. We have discussed already. Occupation completed by Claudius in 1st century AD. Hadrian's Wall built like a China wall, 122 AD. Romans leave in 410 AD because Visigoths attacked Rome. Visigoths, you can understand. Visigoths attacked at the time, their own country. So they were worried about their own country. So why do you think about Britain now? Let's go and save our own land, homeland. So they went back. Now I think there should not be any doubt as far as Old English, the fluctuation is concerned. The only thing is that now we have to remember the names. Saint Augustine's, the other name is Saint Augustine, lands in Kent in 597, convert King Ethelbert, king of Kent, an old Saxon settlement, to Christianity. This is also biggest development, historical development, where King Arthur, king of Kent, the oldest Saxon settlement, King Ethelbert by Saint Augustine, was influenced for Christianity. Becomes the first archbishops of Canterbury. This is about Roman occupation. Important cultural and historical results. Military strong armed forces pushed Celts into Wales and Ireland. When these people came, they pushed Celts into Wales and Ireland, these Anglo-Saxons. Remember, they are not uniform. Who attacked Anglo-Saxons and Jutes? But original people were there. They were pushed to Wales and Ireland. Celts. They were Celts before them, before Anglo-Saxons and Jutes. Prevented Vikings from raiding for several hundred years. Raiding. They were raiding and looting. The Rome's greatest gift to Britain was peace. So one author says, Hollister writes, Warren Hollister, C. Warren Hollister. So he says, when they went, it was a peace that was preserved there. Infrastructure, government fell apart when they left. Walls, villas and public baths, some are still there. Language and writing, Latin was official language at the time. Latin. When these French people came in 1060, they brought French. Practice of recording history led to earliest English literature being documentary. Religion, Christianity beginning to spread, take a hold, and especially after Saint Augustine's convert the King Ethelbert. You can remember, I think, this is very important. King Ethelbert. So most important rules of the Roman occupation. So, see, you take example of the wife of Bath. Wife of Bath was a radical at the time, having 5 husbands or so and so forth. So here, before Chaucer came, we have the most important Roman occupation that heavily influenced English language relatively. Begins to take hold of England, but does not fully displace paganism. That was paganism for several hundred years. That was also called paganism before English, during English, at the time. Pagan, word pagan is remembered. So the important events in the first Anglo-Saxon, you know already, I have discussed. Then Anglo-Saxon heptarchy, Viking invasions, 780. Vikings also were there, because Vikings were stopped by these Anglo-Saxons and Jutes for several hundred years, 787 to 1066. You can imagine. By determination, Vikings, they were all Vikings, explorers. And then important results of Viking invasions were politically and culturally influenced. Lots of ongoing tribal feuds and wars. So basically you can see the attacks and the exchange of weapons, fightings. After Norman invasion, see here it is given correctly, Celtic BC. You have to understand BC and AD. So I am sharing this particular PPT with you. Just try to understand Old English, Middle English, Early English. Translation of Beowulf and bibliography is given there. You can easily understand. Thank you so much. I hope I can make some sense like this. in coming classes. I am sharing this PPT also with you. Thank you.